verses by Ricky Byers Beckwith and Michael Bernard Beckwith. It is truly perfect that Sue is embracing this song in the way that she does, and to bring it forth in such a fantastic way. You know, we talk about songs before service. I know still everything ends up to be in divine order. Thank you, sir. And at the same time, conversations are to be had. And I try to stay open and available. At the same time, I'm always looking at a bigger picture. You know, some of you maybe have a piece of this, and I'm going to handle the flowers, and I'm going to handle the projector, and I'm going to handle it, but I have to look at the whole picture. And so when Sue said, "Have I told you lately that I loved you?" I said, well, you know, that's good, that's good. But then I had this idea, she kept talking, and she said, you know, I thought of some other things, but those are the ones that just kind of popped out at me. And I said, well, what are the other things that you thought about? And she mentioned Genesis. And I said, yeah, I think that's the one. Not only because I have an affinity and an affection for the songs that the Beckwiths have prepared for this world, but because I know the journey that I'm walking on, and I understand that we often use those words, I love you. And it's not about the telling of I love you. It's not about the saying of those words. But it is about being here to reveal God. And so in this understanding of I am here for my God to reveal what was said in the beginning. You know, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. And there are so many words that we speak that come from a place of our understanding. And then there are words that we speak that have a way of revealing our nature. There are ways that we speak, and there are ways that we show up. And it is good for us to understand that which is important to us, that which is key to our growth, development, and unfoldment. It is important for us to know that we are revealers of truth. We're not simply speakers of truth. We are absolutely here to show what the face of God looks like. Now, there are times when we need to hear what the voice of God sounds like. We sometimes attribute a God-like status to people, that some are deserving in certain moments and others are not deserving in other moments, but we still do this. We've been on this journey for the month of November in gratitude. With that being our monthly theme, we've been coming from a place of gratitude, and in coming from a place of being in gratitude, that means that we are in this particular vibration. We are in this particular field. We are in this particular understanding. And that understanding is that God is abundant and God is giving, and there is a wonderful law of circulation that continues to let the things flow from outward to inward and from inward to outward. And there's this wonderful way that this happens in each of our lives through no fault of our own. The laws, the spiritual laws are perfect, just as the physical laws are perfect. But we began with the idea that we are ecstatic with gratitude. And that meant for us to be able to be tuned in to the truth that we live in the spirit that is ever asking God for everything, that believes that God is giving everything, and that it is constantly giving thanks to God for everything, and that we are absolutely in our joy because all of this is happening. Wow. There's this substance that is the universe that is never tiring of giving of itself, and we're never tiring of giving thanks for it, and we're never tiring of receiving it, and we're never tiring of just continuing to be in that flow of good and being in our joy. And that sense of being ecstatic was something that we were able to truly resonate with, and we allowed ourselves to marinate in that. until we stopped, until we didn't. And then we began to be reminded again in the following week about what it means to be harvesting the garden. And knowing that there are many different varieties in the garden, that there are many different vegetables, that there are many different plants, that there are many different things that offer things to us, fruits and all these different kinds of things. And we also discussed Diwali, which was the feast that many different faiths in the East were celebrating, and noticing how they were honoring their family members and how they were honoring the presence of God in all of these many ways that this was going on throughout the week. And it wasn't simply delineated by a country or even one particular faith, but this appetite for absolutely being in celebration of that life energy in every way that it looked. And so as we show the light and the direction of the abundance and the myriad ways that God is being celebrated, and the myriad ways that each of us can celebrate all that God has made available to us, we're also being reminded to keep track of what has been planted so that we know what to expect. Because there will always be a harvest time. There will always be a time for us to collect the things that we have planted in the universal soil. And so that the following week, last week, we talked about EGO, not ego, but embracing gratitude only. And when we're being able to say, you know, gratitude is not determined by our circumstances. And when I talked about my grandmother, she didn't let the circumstances determine her gratitude for God. And when we thought about the people in the Philippines, they didn't allow their circumstances to dictate whether or not they were grateful, whether or not they were going to be in their joy. And so we realize that there's bountiful possibilities in the realm of the I am, of that Mother, Father, God that is always providing, that is always giving and gifting of itself in so many fabulous ways. But today we're embarking on family values. I thought it was pretty wonderful that Dr. King had something to say on that subject. I'm often listening. You know, I don't always see the signs on the road in front of me, but I do hear. I have a different kind of a broadcasting system that I hear that's like, you know, the dogs that can hear certain signals that nobody else can hear. So I get tuned into those things, and I sometimes am obedient, and I work to become more and more obedient about listening to this particular broadcast vibration. So when I tuned in and they said, you know, it's time for you to go back to this book because I Come Here was gifted to me by a dear friend from Los Angeles after I had already come back here to Chicago, knowing how she knows my intentions for my ministry and knowing how this wonderful book has been filled with gems of different speeches by Dr. King that tune us into the very essence of what we're about. Because my ministry has always been a ministry that wasn't simply contained within the four walls, and it was never a ministry that said, well, you know, you just stay in prayer and you just meditate and you do these things and you don't move your feet. It's never been that kind of a ministry for me. Even when I was rejecting being in ministry as a child, even when I was rejecting being in ministry as a young adult, it was never about not doing that work. Because I had a sense of the family values, which is our topic for today, and the family values didn't necessarily come from my birth family, although some of us shared some of those same values. The family values came from a human family kind of perspective, a human family kind of perspective that led to an also inclusive animal family perspective, and also led to an environmental family kind of perspective, and also leaded to everything that is, and it became about the oneness. And so as we embarked on this divine idea, we've had various leadership teams that have come into play. And in the various leadership teams, we have been visiting and revisiting what our values are and what we are simply committing to and what we are considering to be the priorities for our community and what that means to our lives. So I had to take a look at this idea of family when I settled on the topic family values, and I began to think about, what is a family? It's a group of people. And so, we have a kinship. And the anthropologists will tell you different things about the different social relationships that form, that people form in their lives and societies. And so in this going beyond the mental and really getting into the understanding of what are these groups that come together, what are their processes, what's going on when they mate, what's happening when they decide to be parents, what's the socialization process of these children. And I began to look at what it is that we are participating in when we make certain agreements about coming together, and what it is that we do when we come together in ways that are healthy, and what it is that we do when we come together in ways that are not. And so when I look at our shared values, and I invite you to open your programs now and take a look at what our shared values are, because apparently I'm sometimes accused of being etheric. And sometimes when I'm being etheric, people don't get the plain talk. You know how the old folks say, make it plain? So I'm just going to make it plain that it's been here in your program for almost 7 years. For 6 years and about, 9 months. It's been in your program. What this divine idea is for our community, it's there in the vision statement, and then it's kind of broken out in terms of what a global heart vision is like, and it goes beyond conditions. But it speaks to what the values are there. And so I want to call your attention to what we have said is important to us. And I want you to understand that this is our household. And a household doesn't mean the building that you're in. The IRS might look at it that way. But the household isn't simply just a single dwelling place. And because even in one household, there can be multiple households. And there can also be a home that are in multiple locations. And so, what defines a family? We're affiliated with each other. We share personal information with each other because that's our connection to each other. The information that we share with each other, whether you are doing some community service work at Eastern Stars, or whether you are with a particular kind of group, there's a family song that was sang this past Wednesday, was it? Yes, it was Wednesday when Governor Quinn signed the Marriage Act in Illinois. Thank you, God. That there is no longer gay marriage and straight marriage in Illinois. It is just marriage. And so I began to think about the fact that it was occurring on my father's birthday. And I remember having a conversation with my father back one time when I was in a committed relationship, and you're not going to get married, are you? And I'm like, well, what if I decide I want to? Because at that time, people were they were kind of like, oh yeah, it's cool to be gay and all that's great, but marriage, that's a whole nother story. And then I remember thinking back also on the same day, my father said, you know what, whatever you do, I just want you to be happy. He wasn't just talking about my mate, he was talking about my life in general. And I thought, well, there was a time when, the legislature made this decision. And they made that decision on a certain day, and there was another day that Governor Quinn decided to actually sign the law. And it was a wonderful thing because part of the musical inspiration before that song was We Are Family. And for people who are in our community in that way, we refer to each other as family. So we want to know, is she family, is he family? That way you know who may be interested and who may not be interested. Because contrary to popular belief. People are not trying to recruit people into being something that they are not. They're simply trying to find ways to acknowledge what family they belong to. And so when you think about what a family is, you think that there are things that you share that only you understand. Those of you who have been in the foundation class, only you understand certain things that maybe people who haven't been in the foundation class don't understand. Maybe there are people who have been involved in unity and have come over to religious science, and they have a certain understanding that maybe some other people who have not been exposed to New Thought at all don't have an understanding about. And so there's different kinds of family associations. But in any kind of family meeting, whether it is a planned meeting to discuss what it is that we need to do, or whether it is an unplanned meeting to discuss what comes up in the process of being family, because stuff comes up in the process of being family. And so what we said here at the Oneness Spiritual Center was that our shared values are spirituality, love, vision, community service, education, integrity, financial health, physical health, caring, compassion, safety, diversity, and inclusivity, growth, and prosperity. And so we want to just take a look at what does that look like? I mean, you know, anybody that knows me for more than 5 minutes knows that I'm not about simply spouting words. Anybody that knows anything about the nature of who I am is knowing that I am convicted to certain things. And so when other like people came into our community and were attracted to this divine idea, they were able to say, oh, this is what is important to us. And that's what's important to us. So when we have spirituality as the center value of what we're about, we're absolutely saying, you know, that spiritual dimension of me is my real me. This spiritual dimension of me is something I want to focus on. This is important to me. This is a value for me. And so when we say, oh, love is important, you know, we want to absolutely be able to feel the love when we're hugging each other in the process of the service. We need to feel the love, not simply when we're there in a Sunday conversation, or when we're listening to a Sunday message, or when we're hearing a song that is being sung. We want to be able to know love beyond a day of the week. We want to be able to know love in the middle of the week. We want to be able to know love in the midnight hour. And so we're turning back to the basics here. Just as Dr. King was saying in that reading that I shared with you earlier, you can't forget the most precious thing about you. The most precious thing means you have to go back for it. You can't go forward until you decided to go back and get the thing that is most precious to you of all. And I'm saying to you, that which is most precious to us are our shared values, are our family values. Now, you may go and sit at the Thanksgiving table on Thursday, and there will be people who will come early, who have prepared things to eat. There will be people who have come early, who have started to prepare the table. And there will be people who just show up just under the wire when it's time to start to eat. And there will be people who will come late, and those people will come late maybe because they were somewhere else. And maybe some of those people are coming late and they're bringing an important dish. They're bringing like a main dish. And you're saying, oh my God, you know, why did they have to be late? And I've been waiting on this dish. Why did they have to be late? And then you go, oh my God, you know, this person was late. And then you forget about how good that the food was that they brought. You forget what it is that they had to share with you. You forget what it was, that ingredient that you had memorized from the last experience that you had, knowing that it would be even better because it will be happening now in this now moment. And then you have these great opportunities to be with each other, and to celebrate each other, and to be grateful for each other. And then you start to talk about the people that aren't there. And you start to think about what's wrong with that person. And you start to talk about each other behind each other's backs. And then you start to have these conversations about what it is that so-and-so doesn't have, and what it is that that she doesn't understand and what it is that he didn't do. And so what family does is they're a group that comes together for a reason. And the reason that people come together is usually pretty clear. And so if you have a family member who's not working, you can spend the time talking about, well, you know he ain't got a job. Or you could find him a job, ask him if it's okay for you to talk to somebody about a job for him. Ask him if it's okay, because most of the time, people don't really tell us what they need. And so I want to really be sure that we're telling each other what we need. I would ask the core council to say, tell me what they need, because maybe what it is that they need, they're not getting, and I don't know. And they're like, well, I don't know what they want. And so what I'm saying to you is we've got to let each other know what we need. When we're in a family and we need to pay the rent, we need to understand that everybody needs to come together to contribute. That's where that guiding principle, teamwork, comes in. You know, Sue said, you know, I have a space in my building that we can meet in. That's where teamwork comes in. You know, when it comes to a spiritual mind treatment, we have to understand that there are practitioners who are here to pray for you. There are people who have been licensed. Well, it doesn't mean anything that you have a license, but it does. Because the thing is, these people, I became a practitioner because I love to pray. I don't know why Erica became a practitioner, but I see how her prayer transformed people's lives. And here she is licensed with the Oneness Spiritual Center, and most of her practitioner work is done outside of the walls of our center because she is absolutely committed to being that presence wherever she goes. Now, the difference between sharing your concern with Erica and sharing it with somebody else is that Erica's license won't permit her to share it with anybody else. It's confidential. Her license depends on it. And so when you have these conversations, you don't know what will happen as a result of that because you have to keep the family in mind. So when you're looking at the big picture, as parents often are charged to do, it's simply not about the candy bar Johnny wants in that moment. It may have to do with the meal that we have to prepare and have to make sure it's going to be there for the rest of the week. It may appear that it needs to be there for the rest of the month, and that maybe that candy bar is off the budget, and it's not about hurting little Johnny's feelings at that moment, but it's about a bigger picture that has to do with the welfare of the family. We have to understand that we have shared values. Because education is a shared value that we have. We constantly have classes. This year alone, we've had a spiritual practices class, a visioning class, an energy of money class, a foundations class, smaller classes on intuition, on emotional freedom techniques, on out-of-body experiences, grief and communication with the other side. We've had all of these because this is part of our value system, that we have these classes to keep people attuned to what it is that we have agreed to at the level of our soul. And at the soul level, we have come to certain understandings that cannot be shaken by anything that happens externally. Now you got Liz Cheney in Wyoming. Now, one family value that the Cheneys obviously have is that politics is everything. Politics has determined what our lives will be. Now, there's another family value that they obviously had in there because Mary, her sister, caught it, and it's like love is important and family is love. Family looks out for family, right? And so when Liz decided that she was going to go in this challenge with the incumbent, Senator Mike Enzi, you know, and Mary, her sister, has something to say about Liz's stance. All of a sudden, Liz had been anti-gay. Now, all of this time that Liz had been in her sister's home, with her sister's children, with her sister's wife, all of this has been happening, but her value was about politics, and that value became greater than the value of family love and family loyalty and family allegiance. so what happens is, everybody's saying, well, we wonder what that Thanksgiving table is going to be like this Thursday. Because there was a shared value that had been compromised. There was a shared value that had been betrayed. There was a shared value that had been abandoned for the sake of a personal goal. This is why families come together. Whether it's a family of birth or a family that you choose to be a part of. And when you say you want a vision, when you say that one of your shared values is to vision, it's important for you to understand that you have to let go of all of those personal attachments that you've been holding on to. Because the reason that you're coming into being even more committed to your spirituality is because something's not working in your life, something's not going the way you wanted it to, something's not going on track with what you thought it would be. And so you say, there's a time for me to be willing to be transformed. And so the people that don't want to be transformed can't stay at the Oneness Spiritual Center, because the Oneness Spiritual Center is about transformation. Visioning is a key tool for transformation. Unless you're willing to be more, you cannot allow yourself to be caught up in the energy of the value that is here, that is visioning, because visioning is asking you to get out of the way and let God run the show. And so you have to understand that when we say that our leaders are to be vision facilitators, that means that they are willing to absolutely be holding the space for you to know that it is safe for you to want to be more. It is safe for you to want to know more about your divine nature. And so when we think about the guiding principle that is accountability, that means that there's a quality or a state of being accountable. And that when we say we have this as a shared value, we get to call each other on that. We don't whisper behind each other's back, well, you know, she didn't say this and she didn't do that. But you say, oh, hey, this is our shared value. Is that in alignment with that? Let's talk about this, because this is outside of what our family values are. So we have to have these real conversations, because if we don't think that our love is strong enough to sustain it, then we're probably right. Because the thing that you have chosen to believe is not the truth. It is a beautiful thing that we have such wonderful tools and such wonderful friends. I got a call from Patty the other day. Katarina's in town, and Katarina wants to give me a couple of personal healings. That we felt you, and we knew that you needed something heavy lifted off of you. See, I have a network of people that are looking out for my highest and best good. These are people that I've prayed with, and when you pray with people, when you pray for people, you have a connection. It doesn't matter if they decide that they don't want to be connected any longer. You have a heart connection. You have a love connection that is not broken. That's what unconditional love is about. So when you decide that you're going to talk about Uncle Bob, you might want to take a different tack. We're going to let ourselves be primed for some games here, because we're finding that games are very much tied into joy most of the time. But this wonderful practitioner who came into our midst again this year, Tom Masbaum, he brought me a few books. He says, well, you can sell these, you can share them with your people, whatever. I said, well, I have to go through first. I don't just put anything out there for people unless I've reviewed it, and I've just been having such a good fun with this thing called A Book of Games. And A Course in Spiritual Play is the subtitle. And so I was looking at this one game, and I thought, oh, that's just so cool. I think that I should like to play that game. And I'm going to invite y'all to play a game. You ever play a game with your family when you come together at holidays and stuff? Let's call this game Secret Agent, because that's what he calls it. So, and I started playing this game this weekend. It was really cool. So he says, you're now a secret agent from a foreign kingdom, and the mission your king has personally commissioned you to do is clearly defined, like in the seductresses of the First War, Second War. You can go back to the Bible, you know, there was Delilah who was trying to seduce Samson to get the information, you know, and against the Philistines, and there was the, you know, there was women throughout history that have been using their personal relationships to get information. You know, Ruth was a tool in creating the very dynasty from which Jesus came from. You know, the Queen Esther. There's many women that you see who have been secret agents, but he goes on to say, they could say or do anything. Your objective, y'all gonna play, right?
Yeah.
Your objective is not to get, but only to have. So you are to have peace with whomever you encounter. To this end, you can say or do anything. In fact, you are not to be concerned at all with your behavior or how another acts toward you. Nor are you to distinguish between external encounters and ones that take place only in what you think of as your mind. A recalled encounter or one anticipated or one invented are all equal in importance to actual meetings between you and anyone else. Should someone choose to gossip in your presence or do anything else you might have formerly disapproved of, your instructions are not to denounce them, just to not make them conform to your judgments of what's proper behavior, but to just ensure that there'll be an actual feeling of harmlessness and gentle caring between you. Because remember, caring is one of our shared values. So I started, you know, doing that, you know, on the train, down the street, in the office, and every time you have a moment, just a moment of goodwill with anybody, you report back to your commander, in this case being God. And so the way that you communicate with your commander is you use a code phrase, and that code phrase is, thank you. So every time I exchanged energy with someone, and there was a feeling that I got, I was like, thank you. And this person didn't know I was communicating on my broadcast vibration to my general, to my king. They didn't know that every time I had a great moment, I was saying, thank you. And so I'm inviting you to do that even during this Thanksgiving dinner. When you see a relative, maybe sometimes there's a relative that doesn't come around a lot. Maybe that relative only comes around for special occasions. Maybe you don't see them a lot. Maybe you got ideas in your head about what that means. But no, just take that opportunity to have that moment of goodwill. Just take an opportunity to not think about what's happened externally, what happened in the past, what might happen in the future, what's probably going to happen. Just allow yourself to be with the authentic I am that you are and the authentic I am that they are. Now, there's another game. It's called Banker. Now, I want y'all to close your eyes to do this game. You'll do that secret agent game later, or sometime during the service or after service or whatever. But this is a game called Banker. So I want you to just turn within and scan your feelings. It doesn't have to be a pure comfort and joy. You know, that doesn't mean you're not spiritual because you're not feeling pure comfort and joy. It just means where you are. And so just see where your feelings are. Now, these feelings are an exact accounting of what external appearances you have invested in. You set a high value on something out there. Either you want it changed or unchanged, or you're anxious or sad that this rule of happiness that you have made may be broken. Now, the fact that you attempt to set the rules whereby you will be happy should indicate to you that, in a very real sense, your heart is where you have placed your treasure. Now, having taken a moment to check the outcomes you have invested in, take a moment more to withdraw your investment and withdraw your heart. Put them where they will not hurt you. Say, I have no further interest in fill in the blank, whatever it is. I have no further interest in what this person decides. I have no further interest in how this event turns out. I have no further interest in what I need to do to appear right. Instead, I'm interested in the peace of God. So take with you a single new goal: to be comfortable. It could be to be at ease. It could be to let all things be. Or it could be to extend to all the peace of God. Get in your idea where you've invested. Decide whether or not you want to withdraw your investment in that. Decide what you want to invest in. Is it your ease? Is it your comfort? Is it an ability to let there be? Because let there be is as it was in the beginning. In the beginning, God said, let there be. And so if we can let each other be, then we will begin to see the congruence, which is one of our guiding principles. We can begin to see what is in common between ourselves and each other. We can begin to see how we're able to communicate openly. We can see how it is that we're willing to know the peace that is offered in everything that happens in our lives. In each one of our encounters, we're choosing the way of peace. We have peace. It is the peace of God. It is all that you have. It is all that you are. It is all that you could ever need or want. This is what's happening in the kingdom. See, as you open your eyes, I invite you to come to the kingdom. Be very conscious of what it is that you want to invest in. Be very conscious of that which you want to be comfortable about. Be very conscious of that which you are willing to become. Become very conscious of that which you are willing to release. Become very conscious of that which you are willing to embrace. Become very conscious of that which you are willing to be open to understanding. Be very open to what else, if anything, is there for me to know. These are questions of visioning. These are questions of transformation. These are questions of your authentic self. These are questions that you have come here in this incarnation to answer. I invite you to clearly, easily, and effortlessly do so. I love you. Namaste.
Namaste.